All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our homesteading series this evening. We're going to hear from Christian Williams of Blue Acre Appalachian Aquaponics. And he's going to tell us all about their aquaponic operation down there in Kermit, West Virginia. And he's going to stay on the line with us live this evening to answer all of your questions about all things aquaponics. So thanks for joining us. Just a couple of quick background information before we get started. So we are coming to you from the Business Development Division of the West Virginia Department of Agriculture. My name is Lacey. I'm one of the 4 planning coordinators in our division. I cover the green region that you see there from Mason County down to McDowell. As planning coordinators, we help folks with a lot of different connecting the dots to help their agribusiness grow. Just quickly, a couple other programs that we run out of our division one is our West Virginia Grown program. This is a really excellent branding and marketing program for your agribusiness. We do a print directory, we have an online directory, and each month farmers are featured in our market bulletin that goes out across the state. And then lastly, our Veterans and Heroes to Agriculture program. We just got a new coordinator for this program, Sierra Cox, so you guys may be familiar with her. So she's going to be joining us as our coordinator for our Veterans and Heroes to Agriculture program. So stay tuned. I'm sure she'll be joining us on one of these homesteading series webinars to tell you all about the great programs that they're running out of that program. So without further ado, Christian, do you want to do a quick background intro on yourself? I'll stop sharing my screen for a second. Or actually, go ahead and do your introduction and I'll get your video pulled up if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, like she said, I'm Christian Williams. I'm co-manager of Blue Acre Aquaponics here in Kermit, West Virginia. My background is I have a degree in chemistry from Marshall University, so I've always been involved in the sciences. And when my hometown of Kermit here started developing an aquaponics operation in the state, I applied for it, and they interviewed me, and they hired me as the second person they hired. And we built the entire operation inside the building. It was built prior to us being hired, and we assembled everything, got it all running, and started the fish and the plants and all the water chemistry necessary to keep it running, and the selling and the finances too.
Yeah, you guys do it all. And I'm telling you guys, I've had the pleasure of visiting Christian and touring this facility. Not only do these guys know this place and know their operation like the back of their hand, but they're so enthusiastic and passionate. And that's something I noticed, Christian, when I was down there. Not to mention the facility is state of the art. I was blown away. You guys have it so neat and tidy in there, brand new. It looks really beautiful too. So I'll go ahead, Christian, and start the video, and then we will stay on the line and do a little Q&A. All right, here we go.
Hello, I'm Christian Williams, co-manager of Blue Acre Aquaponics here in Kermit, West Virginia, and today I'm going to show you how our aquaponics operation works and how it all got started. First of all, aquaponics it's an ancient system, but it's been relatively new in terms of commercial standards. It's a system whereby you grow fish and plants together through water. Starting here with the nursery, you get tilapia fish in our case, as you can see here in the glass. You start them off in the nursery here, and you put them in, and you feed them Purina Aquamax in our case, some kind of FDA-approved fish food, and they'll eat it up, and they'll produce waste in the form of ammonia, and the waste will transport down the drain into a clarifier, then into a mineralization tank, into a bioreactor, whereby nitrifying bacteria is generated, and that'll convert the ammonia over to nitrate, which is the nutrient, and then it'll flow out to a degassing tank where it will mix and flow over to plants, and they float on rafts, and they grow down into the water, and they will absorb the nitrate out and grow off of it. And a pump will suck the water out from the plant section back to the fish, and the process will recycle itself all over again. So after being in the nursery tank for 11 weeks, the tilapia in the nursery are transported out, tank by tank, into what's called the main system, which is larger for them to grow out. Now you can see here the fish, these are our oldest ones. They are much, much larger from the baby ones you just saw. And the same system applies here. You feed on a much larger amount of fish food that you weigh on a scale every week to determine the amount that you need. You feed them, they produce ammonia, flows out through the clarifier mineralization tank into a bioreactor, converts over, flows out to the plants. Plants absorb the nutrients out, water flows back to the fish tanks to do it all over again, just on a larger system scale. Alright, here's how we'll feed the fish. This is the part where most people generally enjoy, and when we give tours, especially for kids, they love doing this part. As you can see, the tilapia are very aggressive feeders. This here sets our system apart from most others. This is called a purge system. It has a dual purpose. One is the purging portion of the process, whereby at the end of the fish life cycle, we'll take them out of the tank and put them in here. And we won't clean them for a week. And we will add unionized sea salt into the water and raise it over time to concentration. And that will put the fish into a coma-like state. And the reason you want that is, not only does the salt help purify their skin and give them a fresher taste, but it also, what puts them in a coma-like state, it will relax them. And so when you get them out to put them on ice to get ready to fillet them, they won't set off a trigger in their immune system to release toxin. And it'll give them a bad taste. So that's one reason why we do that here at our facility. Another portion of the aquaponics system that we have here is called the ZDEC, which is Zero Discharge Extra Production. It's a patented system from Nelson and Page, which we bought this system and assembled it from. And it creates extra production from a normal aquaponics facility, whereby whenever you drain a clarifier, as you have to do randomly, because the waste will build up in it, instead of draining it down to the sewer where it will just go to waste, here you open up the valve and suck it to a pump into this bead filter, and it will cycle the water through. And it will separate the nutrient-rich sludge from the regular water. And once it's finished on that cycle, the regular water can flow back into the system to fill it back up, that way you don't lose water. And the nutrient-rich sludge will be pushed down into what are called media beds, and that'll give you an extra ability to grow more food. Here is the plant section of the facility. These are called raft beds. The water from the fish tanks with nitrate in it will flow out through here into these two beds, flow over to these two, and back to the fish tanks to get more recycled. This here is predominantly used for lettuce, as it is the best crop to use on a raft system. And they simply just float on styrofoam rafts, and I'll pull one of them out to show you. And the roots go down into the water. And they absorb the nitrate out, and the plant will grow off of it. And these particular type of lettuce, called Rex Butterhead lettuce, is our best seller. It takes about 40 days from seed to harvest. We also have Skyphos Butterhead, Teodor Butterhead, and on the far end we have Salanova, which is the leaf lettuce. And those typically are our best-selling crops. And we can also experiment with any other kind because we can grow all year long, even in the wintertime, because of our greenhouse, because we control the temperature. Here is what we have our media beds. We have 3 of them. And we use what is called hydrogen, which is basically clay pellets. And the water from the ZDEC system is pushed down into 3 equalized tanks with each other, and they have an individual pump in each of them. And on an hourly time schedule, they will turn on for one each time, and they will fill up the media bed with that nutrient-rich water, and plants that are typically top-heavy that you can't put into a rack can be grown in this. And here we have kale and Swiss chard, and we also have some tomatoes we're trying out to experiment to see how well they do. And we also experiment with water spinach that does quite well on here as well. This here is what's called the germination table. And here is where we start out all of our plants from pellet seeds. We use rock wool, and we calculate the number of seeds that we need for each plant that we want to grow. Like here is our Rex Betterhead, which is our most popular one here. And as you can see, we take 1 pellet seed and put it into the hole. And this is soaked wet with water from the fish tanks and flows back as well, so it provides the nutrients for them. And within 24 hours, you typically have germination, as you can see from here. And you let the plants grow for around 10 days or so, and they'll turn into this. And then from here, you move them out, because they need more space to grow or else they'll bolt. You put them in what's called an NFT, or nutrient film technique system, where they can spread out a little further for about another 10 days or so. And then when you think they get large enough, you move them out from there and into the rafts and put them down on one end, and every day you simply move another one forward like a giant conveyor belt until they go to harvest. For an aquaponics system, it's best to use a greenhouse, not only for the growing conditions that it can be all year round and the best for your plants and your fish, but also for safety. For the plants and fish, both of them have to survive, or else they will destroy the other one, or the whole system will collapse. For tilapia fish, you need a temperature between 68 degrees and 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything lower or higher than that, and it could kill them, which in turn will kill your plants, because they don't have any nutrients available to grow off of them. For the plants, they need ample amount of sunlight, and the fish need to be in a shaded area. So the greenhouse area over the fish has a sealed roof where it doesn't let light come through directly, whereas for the plants, they have acrylic, a narrow-piece acrylic glass, to let sunlight through for them to grow off of to complete photosynthesis. Temperature regulation comes in the form of cooling with passive. We have shades on both sides to let the air in, cool air in, and a roof vent to let transpiration occur. So it'll create a draft for cool air to keep flowing through and for the plants to transpire. And when we want it to get warmer, we simply close them off, and we have natural gas heaters stationed in here to keep the temperature up to where we need it to be during the colder time of the year. For safety reasons, the side vents have a net on them to keep bugs out, and we have a chain link fence around too to keep bears and trespassers out as well. And we also have a valve securing before you enter the greenhouse. That way it kills off any germs off of your hands with the sink, and a disinfectant mat for the shoes.
All right, that was awesome. Thanks, Christian, for giving us that tour of your facility. I'm just so amazed by what you guys are able to do there. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, I have a couple of questions, and folks, as you guys have questions, you can just pop off of mute and ask Christian, or you can use the chat feature here in our meeting if you'd like to type something up. But I have a question, Christian, for you while we're, oh, can you guys see me? Are we back to our original? I think I was still sharing. So I have a few questions that I was taking notes and writing down as you were talking. My first is, this is our homesteading series, and a lot of folks who hop on to watch these recordings or even the live sessions are oftentimes just getting started or trying to figure out what sort of agriculture enterprise they want to get into. So my first question is, what advice would you give to someone who's just getting started or really, really thinking about pursuing this as, maybe even on a smaller scale than you guys are doing there at Blue Acres? What advice would you give them? Would you give a startup business in aquaponics?
Well, I will give them the advice of going to a already established aquaponics center like Nelson and Page, where we went to in Wisconsin, who have been doing this for a long time, and they've figured out all the kinks of it, of getting one started. Because when they built this one here, they bought it off of them because they sell them big commercial systems as well as home systems, depending on what size you want. And they will give you the rough estimates of how big it should be, how much you should plant. They try to help you out with their electricity costs, etc. So that would be my primary advice to anybody who would want to get started at developing an aquaponics place.
Awesome. Or I guess they could come and see you too, right?
That's true. When COVID goes away, definitely.
Yeah. Are you guys open to the public right now, or are you kind of keeping things closed off for a bit?
Yeah, we are open to the public, but we are advised not to have groups currently.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense.
But we are designed to be an education center to help people out, to help them how it works and how to build one. Yes, when COVID finally goes away.
And you guys have already had several groups to come down. I know you were telling me you've had some schools or classes that have come through.
Yes, the Mingo County school system has been down earlier before, and a little small group of 10, I believe.
Cool.
Their agriculture class has been down.
That's awesome. Yeah, and they're not too far from you guys, so.
No, not at all.
Maybe your next round of employees might come from there.
Exactly.
Great. Well, I have a couple other questions, but I want to see if anybody else has something they want to ask before I just dominate this Q&A. Okay, I'm just double checking the chat. I don't see anything yet. So my next question is, Christian, there was a lot of tilapia in those tanks, and there was quite a bit of lettuce that you had growing in your video. And I imagine you're feeding more than just your town of Kermit. So who are your markets? Who are you guys selling to? Are you looking for more people to buy your products? Are you maxed out? Tell us about that.
Yes, we sell locally to our schools and to locals that come in, as well as tourists that come through, because we're also on the Mingo County tourism webpage as well. And we're trying to get established on the West Virginia one also.
Great.
We sell to the Mingo County school system, and we're currently getting involved into the Wayne County school system as well, and perhaps even the Logan one. We also sell to Beckley region and the New River Gorge, and perhaps also to Charleston, hopefully.
That is great.
And we still got more to go too.
What's that?
We still got more to go too.
Yeah, I imagine you're only going to keep growing. Are you maxed out at your manufacturing capacity? Like, are you raising as much as you could, as your system could handle, or could you raise more, you think?
Well, you can double it, like the amount that we can do in it, you can plant in a day. It's just a question of people buying it and having the time to harvest it.
Well, that's neat. You can kind of scale it up or scale it down. You don't have to have it going at full blast all the time.
No.
That's great. Well, something else, I know folks who are going to watch this later or tuning in now probably want to know, they want to learn from your mistakes rather than make them themselves. What's been your biggest challenge and or challenges, or you can just pick one to talk about? What's the biggest learning curve that you and your team there have had with your system at Blue Acres?
Well, aquaponics is very tricky. You have three competing things with each other: the fish, the plants, and the nitrifying bacteria, and all of them have to work or else the whole system will go down.
Mm.
And you have to be extremely patient with it because it will do many things that no guidance book says it should, but will. And it's very stressful in the beginning getting it going right because the system has to mature on its own. I mean, you just have no control over it. You just have to set up the conditions to make it do what it needs to do, and it has to decide to do it on its own. And it will take a while to do it. Some systems can do it very quickly. Others, however, like ours, are longer. Ours took about 8 months actually to finally mature itself and get itself stabilized to go. And some can take longer. One I know that because we called other aquaponics facilities about it, and they said sometimes it can take up to almost 2 years.
Wow. And, I think patience is something that, we could all use a little bit of. But so is someone there like around the clock? Is this something that you really have to just keep a really close eye on? How often are you checking all of the plants and the fish and the pH and the, all of the different, I know when I was there, you were checking all sorts of things, but how often do you have to do that?
Well, when you start out, you have to check that when you first get your fish to start off the system, that's the beginning phase, they produce ammonia. And you have to make sure the ammonia level never gets too high because it'll kill your fish. And because it has to make the nitrifying bacteria start generating to match up with it, to convert it over. And then when that happens, it'll convert it over to what's called nitrite, which is also a toxin to fish. It's necessary in an aquaponics system, but it's also toxic if it gets out of hand. Mm. And then the nitrifying bacteria has to deal with converting it out to nitrate, which is the nutrient for the plants. And then once that system finally managed to stabilize itself, you have to check. I remember when we first got started, that first 2 months at least, you had to check 3 or 4 times a day until it finally matured on its own. And then once it finally does that, and you get your plants going and it starts stabilizing and getting into the nitrogen cycle on a steady basis, you can relegate it down to just doing it once a week. However, your pH has to be checked every day, as well as the dissolved oxygen level once every day.
Wow. So it's much more labor intensive than, than when I go out to check for pests on my tomatoes maybe every couple of days.
Well, starting out, it's pretty labor intensive, but once it stabilizes and you get it going on its own and you get comfortable with it and it starts working as it should, all you have to do is just check the pH and the dissolved oxygen every day. And then once a week, you check ammonia, nitrate. And other than that, unless you think there's some like nutrient deficiency like iron or something, if your leaves are, starting to turn more yellow, you add some iron into it. But other than that, it does pretty well.
Yeah, and it eventually becomes like its own ecosystem and just kind of takes care of itself.
Once it matures, it takes off, and then it's much easier.
That's great. Well, you kind of already answered this one, but I'll go ahead and ask it. So how long did it take? I know there's you and then you have a few other team members there. How long does it take someone who's, just kind of, it sounds like you had a little bit of a background in this, but someone say that you just hired a new person. How long does it normally take them to feel comfortable and taking care of or watching over this system and doing all of the different parts that are involved?
Well, in our situation, it takes, I'd say, about maybe a week and a half. Other than that, they're pretty good.
Oh, wow. That's great. I thought you were going to say a couple of years.
Oh, no. Once you just have to develop a little system for yourself. Do this day, do that day. It's really good to have a calendar and write everything down on it to help remind you of everything. If you can do that and keep it organized, it's really simple.
Very good. Well, a couple of last questions that I have are, if someone was interested in buying from Blue Acre Aquaponics, how do they do that? Where do they find you guys? Are you, listed on a website somewhere, or have store hours where they can shop? Tell us about that.
Yes, we have our own webpage. It's blueacreaquaponics.com. We don't have ordering on there yet because we don't have the capacity to ship it everywhere necessarily just yet. But most people call us, or they can come right on in and we'll show them around and they can buy whatever they want from here at that time. That way it's fresh as could be. They can buy any of the plants or the tilapia fillets that we have, and that we keep in the freezer. Anybody can come in and buy any of them that they want. And we're open Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30. So at any time you can come right on in.
Great. So you have a Facebook, people can contact you there. You have a website.
Yes.
People can find your information there, or they can pick up the phone and call you directly.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. And then tell us about, we didn't get to see the behind the scenes of once you start processing and packaging things, but how do you sell your tilapia fillets? Are they just one at a time? Are they packaged in, several to a package? How do you normally sell them to folks?
Well, the typical way that we do it, and we can do it in other ways, if people request it. But the usual way when we do the fillets, we put into a bag, and they're a pound each. We get around a pound of fillet. That's usually between 4 and 6 fillets, usually, depending on the fish. And we sell it for $13.25 a pound currently, and people can just come right on in. We have the labels already on it, ready to go in the freezer, or when you come in the very day that we fillet, they're fresh right in the cooler for 24 hours before we put them in the freezer. That way they're even more fresh then, and people can just come in and buy them. Or you can call us and we can put you on the reserve list for the next time we do it fresh, and we'll call you back and say it's ready, and you come down and get it.
That is great. Well, Christian, thanks so much for your time this evening. Is there anything else that you want to share with the group? Anything that you feel like you want to clarify or add to your video, or just in general you want folks to know about Blue Acre?
Well, we also had the processing rooms on here, but for time they had to be cut off. But for processing, for the plants, all you do is simply take out a raft, load it onto a cart that's already been pre-cleaned, as well as the processing room. You roll it into there. All you have to simply do is take off the leaves at the bottom. If they look bad, if not, keep them on. And you just cut off the root wad and put it into a plastic package and put it into the box and put it into the cooler. And it's ready to go. Yeah,
that sounds pretty simple and straightforward. A lot easier than harvesting it out of the field, I would think.
Yeah, it's very quick for a single head of lettuce usually, because there's no dirt. They don't get dirty usually real bad. The only thing, the very bottom of the leaves get a little bit wet, so sometimes you have to pull them off. But other than that, it's really easy.
And I'm guessing time of day doesn't matter.
It takes a while.
Yeah, when you're doing that many that you showed us here. So the time of day probably doesn't matter. If you're harvesting lettuce outside, you might want to get it earlier in the morning before it gets too warm, but you're climate controlled, so that probably doesn't matter for you guys, right?
No, we can do it at any time of the day.
That's great. Awesome. Well, any other questions from the group? Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So,
yes.
Could you share with the group any pointers you might have with working with the schools to sell the produce?
Well, it was really good for us because we went with a nutritionist, because we told them what plants we had and gave them the facts of the matter of the kind of lettuce that we had and how we grow any type that you all need. We can always experiment with any kind of lettuce that we want. We only have the ones that we have right now because that's what the public wanted. But we are currently right now doing romaine. We're trying it out to see how well it does, because that's something the schools really wanted for us to try. So we are. So far, it seems like it's doing pretty good, but we haven't got our first harvest yet because they're not old enough.
Very good. And I'm assuming, are the growth times about the same as they would be in a field, or are you guys growing things a little bit faster?
I think it's a little bit faster because for all of our lettuce, it typically takes around 40 days from seed to harvest, and it's ready to go.
Michelle, did you have another question?
Oh, no, I was just saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No worries. It's okay.
Awesome. Well, any other questions or thoughts from the group? All right. Well, Christian, thanks again. I know you stay busy down there, so I appreciate you taking the time to, one, record this video, and two, hop on with us. But hopefully you get some folks who are interested in either learning more about this or definitely coming down to buy some products off of you guys. So thanks again. And if there are no more questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up for the evening.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you all for having me on here.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.